What's up out there? For this week's Indie of the Week, we're going to take a look at Starship Simulator. This is being developed by a studio called Fleet Yard Studios. There is a demo up on Steam, and we're going to go through the website here real quick just to take a look at what the features of the game are supposed to be. There is a demo, and I was part of the Kickstarter. I actually backed this on Kickstarter. I get the ability to design an alien race and a star system, so we might get the binary star in the nutsack galaxy. I'm not sure. We'll see what I end up coming up with. I'll probably go with some kind of eldritch aliens or something like that. I don't believe there's any aliens in the game at the moment, and that's kind of why I wanted to start off on the website. There are going to be some expansions, but let's dive into this here real quick. So they are designing the galaxy at a 1-to-1 ratio. Some astrophysics are going into it. I don't really care about all that. The realism and everything. It is kind of cool that they're doing all this. There is going to be some exploration. They've got faster than light engines. They've got CAD drawings for the architecturally designed. I don't know what kind of background these people have, but they're simulating a lot of different mechanics like batteries and stuff like that. We'll get into that and see that in the game here. And they've designed a lot of the ship in CAD, which I think is great. I have a CAD background myself, not like from an architectural standpoint, just like drawing things. But I think it's fascinating when somebody actually sits down and tries to put like bathrooms and engineering compartments and stuff like that, like the janitor's closets. If they're going into that kind of detail and trying to think through designing a starship, not just, hey, this looks cool and it's got a lot of cool stuff on it, but functionality, here's where the batteries go, here's where the engines go, here's where the crew is going to live. And not just those aspects, but like, are you going to plumb all that stuff up, plumbing for it, the electrical and things like that. If somebody's actually putting that kind of effort into it, and not necessarily to that finite of a detail, but just putting those considerations into it, I think that's very fascinating. Like my dad, when I grew up, my dad was very big into the space program. He's very interested in like the realism, space shuttle and all that kind of stuff. I'm more interested into Star Trek, the sci-fi aspect of things. Both have their place, but I think thinking things out ahead of time, putting some thought into how we would explore the universe, like we're many years away from actually getting out and doing those kinds of things. But if you take science fiction literature or movies or TV shows or video games or whatever, and you try to start working through some ideas like what would it take to do this and how can you get there, I think you'll work a lot of these problems out before you actually have to commit material and people to that task. So anyway, I'm a big fan of stuff like this, Star Citizen, Elite Dangerous, and things like that. The Elite Dangerous is probably the closer game to what I think this is supposed to be or going to be, because Elite Dangerous has the 1-to-1 procedurally generated galaxy and all that. And I did take a trip in Elite Dangerous out to the other side of the galaxy. There was a whole bunch of people. It was the Distant Worlds 2 trip that went out. Thousands of people went out on that trip. We flew across the galaxy. That's some of the first videos I uploaded to my channel. And we flew out to the other side of the galaxy, visited it, and came back. There was only some really cool things to go see. You couldn't get to aliens. You could land on planets and things like that, but there really wasn't much to do out there aside from going to see things. There was no aliens to run into, no artifacts to find, no ancient civilizations to dig up, stuff like that. And I'm hopeful that that's what this game is going to be. Now, Star Citizen's approaching things a little bit differently, and their funding is a little different and everything for all that. Is this going to replace either one of those games? No. And I don't think we need games to replace each other. I think we need games like this to just be, as good as they can be, because each one does something different. Like I enjoyed Elite Dangerous for what it was, and I will enjoy Star Citizen for what it is. Elite Dangerous is kind of dropping off. This game's kind of, I don't want to say in the middle, but it's got its own merits, you know what I mean? And same thing with like No Man's Sky or the X series of games. They all do something a little bit different, and I think that's very cool. So in this game, they've got different roles. You can be a captain, a pilot, science officer, tactical officer, engineer, doctor, morale officer, or passenger. If we go over to like the FAQ, the overall point of the game, your primary mission objective is to explore space beyond Earth and attempt to make as many successful first contacts as possible while managing the ongoing health of the ship and her crew. You will encounter a wide array of scenarios as you explore the galaxy, with each offering their own particular challenge. Your mission will be classed as a success if you return home in approximately one piece. How much will the game cost? The base sandbox, full galaxy ship, and all procedural content will be completely free. No strings attached, no microtransactions, no content gated behind a paywall, just completely free. This is their gift to the sim community. So there is going to be paid components to this. They will be selling ships. They will be selling some expansions and things like that. But the base game is going to be free. So they've got some explanations on how they're doing this. They've done a Kickstarter. They've got Patreon, PayPal, Ko-Fi, all that kind of stuff in here. And it's on Steam, and there are some requirements. Then there's a whole page about the funding model and everything, kind of going over how they're funding everything. Basically, Kickstarter is a big goal of it, Patreon, things like that. So they're kind of doing things sort of the way Star Citizen's doing it, but their Kickstarter was successful, and they do have ongoing PayPal and Ko-Fi and all this other stuff that's going on with that. So let's go take a look at the game itself. Now, I need to preface this portion of the video. I have the Kickstarter demo, which I think might be a little bit more advanced and may have some other issues than the demo that's in the Steam version. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I have a Kickstarter version of it. So I get like the most current update that they've pushed out. And it seems like they're pushing out updates fairly regularly. I do see this advertised in the Steam update fairly frequently. So I believe they're updating this commonly. There is a multiplayer component. I've not tried that. There are some new missions you can do, and I've done both of the training modules. The scanning and navigation we'll go look at real quick. I'm going to end this video off with this cold start sequence. We're not going to go through the whole thing. It's fairly extensive, but I do want to do a little bit of it just to show kind of where they've gotten with this. So if we start a new mission, and there's some other, these are probably the 3-story crews that are coming later. We're basically going to start off with the Starship Enterprise. You can do full crew and flight ready. You can do cold and dark, which is where that one of the training missions is, to show you how to start the thing. And it's very extensive. It's something I thought was cool to do once. I might do that again down the road, but like it was so involved. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to remember any of this. And there's so many pieces to it, but it was cool to do once. It's cool to see that somebody's got things set up like this. Like they've got batteries. You got to juice up the engine and fuel it here and there and do all kinds of different things, and you'll see it gets fairly in depth. But they've got like the frame rate's a little screwy. Let me check, make sure that vertical sync on, and we do want this capped. I was gonna say I thought I ran into some problems. It was feeling, it's not like, this is very early access, very early demo. We've got windows. We can we do that? Yeah, we can polarize it. We can depolarize it. What's scene projection? Oh, so we can actually look at like little trees and stuff. That's cool. And they've got different ones. Misty forest. All right, cool. I didn't actually look at that part yet. But they do have the ship fairly functional. Like you can go sit in a chair. It's not got the seating animation. Like if you were to go play Star Citizen, you actually sit in the chair and it's got that animation for sitting down. They do have, we can put medium library in there. That's cool. They've got doors where you can actually lock them and unlock them, turn the lighting on and off, that kind of thing. And it does get dark to where you have to turn a flashlight on. If you start with the ship powered off, it is completely black. Like you can't see anything. There are some rooms that are decorated. If you go out into like this area here and go downstairs, there are some areas that are just completely blacked out or gray boxed or whatever. Like they don't have this. This is all gray box. There's nothing in here. If you walk over the fruit, you kind of fall over the place. That's probably unintentional. So I don't think you can actually pick anything up, but there's different foods you can look at. Well, you can pick stuff up. I take that back, but you can't really do anything with it. There's not like an inventory or anything. There are different lighting distributors for the batteries and stuff like that. Like I said, we'll see some of that later. There's like, wine bottles and stuff. I don't think you can actually drink anything, or I'm going to assume there's going to be food required. There's going to be some kind of survival mechanics. I'm going to presume that I saw them mention something about having like 200 crew or something like that. So there might be a significant amount of crew members on here. It's possible we have to feed them, clothe them, things like that. I don't know that there's going to be like, they talked about base building, but not like they're not planning on having base building in the game. So it was mentioned, it was not actually like shown, but it was mentioned that they do plan on having base building. I'm sorry, they do not plan on having base building. Your intention is to go and explore, not to like land and live in some place. So you're going to explore out into the galaxy, and that's kind of it. Is there going to be trade? Are we going to have the ability to like go down and pick fruit or something like that, or harvest materials? Don't know. It didn't really get that far, but given that you can go meet other alien races, maybe it's all trade based. You don't have to go like harvest things. They did talk about, I know some of the higher Kickstarter tiers were going out and actually developing shuttles and stuff like that. I don't know if we have a shuttle in the game. I've not really explored the ship all that much. I kind of came in, looked at some of the tutorial parts, and that's kind of the extent of it. So here we've got, and this is kind of where we start in Elite Dangerous, is on this side of the galaxy. In Elite Dangerous, we were able to fly all the way over to that side of the galaxy over there somewhere, passed through the core and went over that way. So it was a very long trip. And I believe you can do that here. I think we can do that now. I'm not sure. Like I said, I've kind of tinkered around with it. I don't think there's a whole lot of gameplay at the moment, but you can sit down at like the control panel. What they do have is basically the ship seems fairly well fleshed out, so we can go and look at long range scanners. So we can go look at Sol, which is basically our sun, or I'm not sure what Sol is. Is that our sun or not? Yeah, I guess it's our sun. So there's ours. But longer range takes us out a little bit further. So if we wanted to go to, say, Alpha Centauri, we could go in here and we could do long range scan. It's going to come up with some information over here. And you can zoom in with the right mouse click. You can read about it. I need to tone that mouse movement down. It's a little quick. You can change your focal point. Like, I guess if you wanted to punch in your own coordinates or something like that, there's stuff you can search for. You can move the display range in and out. You can filter by certain things down here, by the different classes of stars. And if you click this send to helm button, it's actually going to send the directions over there. There are other control panels in here that are work in progress that are not complete. Like here is the sensors. We could throw sensors up here, or we could turn that off. I guess that's the only thing we can do. It's the rest of it's work in progress. Let's see, what does this control panel over here have? It's all work in progress. There's nothing there. There is a little bit of something here. What do we got? Raise and lower shields. So I don't know if there's going to be like actual combat or anything in this. I'm not entirely sure. You can control the ship. Let's see here. We can engage FTL, and then we can move the ship around a little bit. I believe we have to go over to the number pad to actually do like a roll, but you can do pitch and yaw on WASD. Let's see, if we use sensor target, it's going to automatically fill this in, and we can go over here to engage auto navigation, and it's going to automatically fly us over there, and then we could get up and wander around. So it's a lot like Star Citizen in the sense of the way you control the ship. So if you've played Star Citizen, you've got all these control panels, but Star Citizen dumbs things down quite a bit. Like there's an on button and an off button. And then you know, like the controls are all on your keyboard. You can do HOTAS support. I think they said in here they're going to actually add HOTAS support at some point. Kind of looking at the textures on that chair. But the flight in this is actually far quicker. Like in Star Citizen, it takes 5, 10, 20 minutes to cross part of the galaxy. Here, it actually moves fairly quickly. Like you can go in a minute or less than a minute or something like that, and you're there. Or you're going a great distance. So one of the big gripes I had about Star Citizen in some respects is the amount of travel time it takes to get somewhere. I think it's just fairly long. Like boring long, like you're just sitting there and there's nothing to do. You're just kind of chilling. This, 20 seconds, 40 seconds, that's not too bad. You can sit and stare at something else for a little while. And this is kind of what I think the game is. You're just going to go visit, or kind of what the game is in its current state. You're going to go visit some stars. You're going to go see some cool stuff. We're going to land at this place. Oh, there's a sun over there we could go see if we wanted. I don't know that you're going to like point this at, oh, let's go see that star over there, because what is that star over there? There's like thousands of them out in that direction. But you can go travel through if there's something you want to go see. I'm looking forward to when they actually get the alien races and stuff like that in here. I think that's going to be very cool. That must be the star for this system. Keeps going away behind there, and we're landing on the dark side. Now, can we actually, like, let's see. If we get going too fast, bump this up a little bit. No, I don't want to go that fast. How are we going forward? Was it? Nope, spacebar doesn't do it. I thought this actually... Oh, I guess we need to engage. If I go too far, we're going to end up just blasting past this place. So let's bump this up 20%. Disengage autonav. Yep, see, disengage FTL. So, because we end up moving too fast. I zipped past what I was going for the other day. But the planets look nice. You know, I don't think we can land on this. So, like, if I bump this up and engage the FTL, we're just going to go through this. I don't think we explode or anything yet. I tested that. We just fly through it. And then, boom, we're on the other side of it. But, like, it looks cool, you know. I think there's a lot of potential here. I think it's going to go... I think this could be very cool. There's the planet we just zipped through. I would expect we would be able to crash into that. There should be some kind of collision to crash and explode or whatever if you try to fly into that. And like I said, there's not really any... I don't think there's any landing abilities yet. We can go wander around the ship a minute here before we go do a little tutorial. This video's not too bad. I don't know that we can control the elevator. Like every time I get near it, it just kind of goes to a different floor randomly. And I thought we could go lower here. There is these here. Some of the geometry doesn't line up. Like that floor you walk up to, it's not quite there. You got to jump up to get onto it. So there's a little bit of janky stuff in here. What do we got? Science labs on here. Yeah, some of this doesn't quite line up. The collisions don't quite line. Let's see. What do we got back here? I mean, it's just, it's early on. It'd be nice if this was a little smoother, but it is what it is. Yeah, getting kind of stuck on everything in here. I don't think you're necessarily meant to be wandering. Like, I don't think there's a problem with wandering around. Can we not get through here? I just got in. I can't get out. Looks like there's a doorway there. Can we go another direction? Yeah, there's some minor glitches here and there. Can we go this way? It's kind of back where we are. And it's probably the same. Nope. And we can get out this way. Or I got lost and I'm now in the back end of the ship. I don't know. It's not complete. It's definitely not complete. And I'm sure they're going to have a lot more stuff in here. It is definitely a demo. What's amazing is how much time they've spent on all the other parts of it. I ran into the wall there. So let's go actually take a look at the power-up sequence for this thing. I'm not sure there's much to look at besides like gray box stuff. So we'll go take a look at the power-up sequence real quick. I'm not going to go through the whole sequence. It's very long. So basically, you've got, you know, the ship's kind of empty right now, and it is like truly dark. When you turn the light out, you can't see anything. Can we see behind us here? Yeah, you can see out into space. But they want you to come in here. I actually like their waypoint system in here. So as you get closer, you'll notice that there's an arrow that pops up and it shows you where to go. And it tells you how far you are away. The only downside I've found to this is if you skip a waypoint and go a little too far, like, oh, I know where I'm going. What they'll do is you'll end up passing the waypoint and you'll have to go back to it. So here's the reactor thingy. And there's stuff on the floor. The downside is you trip over this stuff or kick it. Like I've actually noticed that if I try to walk over some of it, it kind of gets a little wonky. But the waypoint system's really good.
As you can see, the reactor is offline, and none of the ship's systems are powered. Our first task is to provide power to the engineering decks, so let's make our way to the start capacitor's room.
So we're going to...
the waypoints on your HUD to the startup distributor.
We're going to be messing with all these different control panels at some point. There's a whole bunch of them over here for valves and different things that you got to work on. They're all like LCD display type things, the touchable displays.
As its name suggests, the startup distributor routes energy from the start capacitors to the engineering decks, and also provides the reactor with the power it needs to create the initial fusion reaction. You'll notice the device is already powered because the start capacitors are fully charged. Let's go ahead and get some lights on by connecting all of the breakers. Start with the G-deck breakers, as indicated.
So I found that there was too much glare on this thing. If you turn the flashlight off, it kind of sucks navigating around, but you can at least bring all these on. And I think this is fascinating that somebody's gone through. I wouldn't want to do this fairly often. Like there is a start method that you can do where you actually start the ship. Like you got to do all of this to make the thing go.
Controls should now be online. So let's walk back to the reactor room and take a look.
I don't know that I want to go through this like every time I'd have to start the ship. Like that's a lot to remember. There is a ton of things in here. But I do think it's kind of cool that they're going to have different roles. So like if you're doing multiplayer, you can have different people in different roles and somebody has to come control this stuff. And they were talking about a couple hundred different AI in this ship.
This console displays the reactor's vital information and provides you with full control over the reactor and its subsystems. On the left-hand side, we have the coolant section, which shows the liquid helium coolant flow and the condition of the magnetic field coils. On the right-hand side, we have the electrical section, which shows the reactor's main electrical bus, along with its input and output feeds. In the center, we have the reactor's main display, where we can control the fusion reaction itself. As you can see from all of these alarms, it would be impossible to initiate a stable fusion reaction under the current conditions, so let's fix that. The first thing we need to do is supply power to the reactor. Great. Now that the chamber pressure should now be dropping. To sustain a fusion reaction, we need an internal pressure of less than 10 nanopascals. While we wait for the confinement chamber to reach its target pressure, let's take care of the reactor's fuel and coolant supplies. Exit the reactor room via the door behind you, and follow the way.
So this is where it's going to get really intricate really quickly.
These storage tanks hold all of the cryogenic fluids that are used to both fuel and cool the reactor. All 4 tanks are currently empty, so our first task is to begin the filling process. Let's start with the helium coolant. Head behind the storage tanks to access the helium cryocooler. The cryocoolers use a process called magnetic refrigeration to convert gas into a cryogenic fluid, before pumping it into the connected storage tank. Start up the helium cryocooler now. Excellent. Now if you turn around, you'll find the helium refill valve located on the back wall. These valves control the flow of gases harvested by the ship's gas collection hardware, which is located on the underside of the forward hull. Go ahead and open the helium supply valve now to begin supplying the cryocooler with helium gas.
So like I got ahead of it.
If you turn around again and inspect the display screen connected to the helium tank, you should be able to confirm that the tank is now filling with fluid. We now need to perform the same sequence of events for the other 3 tanks.
Oh, that's up on this thing here.
Helium 3 is the first of 2 fuels used in the fusion reactor.
You can see it, a little blue line filling up there.
Power up the device using its user interface. And now open the helium 3 refill valve behind you. Next, we need to start filling the 2 deuterium tanks. So let's head over to the other side of the room.
So this is where you're, like, there's so many steps to this.
Also known as heavy hydrogen, is the second of the 2
Turn that on.
We store double the amount of deuterium compared to
Click on
helium
that.
because deuterium also fuels the
That on.
neutral beam injectors.
Click on that.
As before, turn on the first deuterium cryocooler. And now the first deuterium refill valve behind. Next, turn on the second deuterium cryo. And now the second. Okay, perfect.
And it's
All
just
4 storage tanks should now be filling with
simple
cryogenic
matter
fuel.
of left click.
For our next task, we now need to engage the cryo pumps in order to start supplying the reactor with everything it needs. Open the deuterium outflow valve to begin supplying fluid to its connected cryo pump.
Did I skip somewhere? I probably got ahead of this thing again. Which one is it? There should be a little box on here. Maybe. Deuterium is over here. Oh, this one.
Next,
I was looking on that
power on
box.
the pump itself using the button indicated on its user interface.
So, like, how are you supposed to remember all these
That's
different
half the
steps?
fuel mix taken care of. Now head over to the helium 3 tank.
So we got to
outflow valve.
basically do the same thing over
As
here.
before, begin by opening the. And now engage. Perfect. All we have to do now is take care of the coolant flow. Head over to the helium tank out. Now open the and finally, there we go. The reactor is now being supplied with all the fuel and coolant it needs. Follow the waypoints back to the...
Yeah, so now we're going to go back into this thing. This is probably where I'm going to cut things off because it goes on for quite a while. It takes a long minute to go through all this.
Open the helium... Now make your way around to the opposite side of the reactor to complete... First, open the deuterium... And now open the helium-3... Okay, great. Let's head over to the reactor controls and take a look at the coolant display. As you can see, we now have coolant flowing into the reactor. This has begun the process of cooling down the magnetic field coils, which must reach temperatures below 20 Kelvin in order to become superconductive. Once the coils have reached their target temperature...
So now we're going to have to start working with batteries, and there's like 8 different battery packs you got to turn on. A lot of this...
Temperatures look good. You can now power up the... With a solid vacuum established... Congratulations! You have now successfully started the fusion reactor. For safety, the reactor automatically starts up at only 10% of its rated power. This means high voltage systems, such as the FTL drive, will be underpowered until you increase the reactor output. Let's resolve that now. Increase the power level to 100%. You'll notice that you can increase the power beyond 100%, but doing so for an extended period will overheat the reactor, causing damage and forcing an uncontrolled shutdown. Okay, we now need to provide power to the rest of the ship. With the reactor now powering itself, you can go ahead and switch... Perfect. If we now head around to the opposite side of the reactor output distributor should now be powered up. This device distributes the reactor's output to the ship.
Yeah, so basically you're going to have to connect
which
all
are in
this
fact
stuff
the
up
only
here.
systems powered directly by the reactor. The rest of the ship is powered by 48 individual battery arrays.
You don't have to do 48, but there is a huge chunk of these. You have to go power all these things on. And then you got to go back in the closet in the background. You got to start powering you got to go to each one of these and power all these on. I think this is cool. And if they've sat down and modeled this to where they've wired all these things together to where they actually are cabled together, so to speak, I think that's fascinating. And once you get all this turned on, it will actually light up and it won't be this red. I don't know how dark it is, but there's a whole bunch more steps. There's several more minutes of this. I think that's fascinating. And if they go into that kind of detail with all the other aspects of the ship, like you got to maintain life support and shields and stuff like that, and you've got all these kind of control panels to deal with, this is where it's gone into a more of a simulation. Like you're not, like in Star Citizen, there's a lot of combat components to it. There's some FPS components. Like they're trying to do something completely different. Elite Dangerous is more ship fighting and flying around and kind of that kind of thing. This is more geared towards exploration and whatever we get to do with the aliens and stuff like that. I think that's all going to be fascinating. I'm really looking forward to what this is going to be in the next 2, 3, 4 years, when this has had time to percolate and get a lot behind it. Because they've got a very good start on the ship now. And functions and everything in here. What's it going to look like in a few years when they actually get some real development time on it? And their Kickstarter was successful. They're able to start hiring some people and getting this fired off. Where's this going to go? That's more what I'm excited about. This is something to really look forward to. And this is going to be a long-term project. I don't see this being, something that's amazeballs here in the next 6 months. It's definitely going to be a few years. But like I said, I just wanted to take a look at this. I backed this here on Kickstarter. And this is the first time I've actually sat down and taken a really good hard look at it and spent some quality time with it. I think it's got a good future, and hopefully it gets made, and hopefully they don't wind up in some weird publisher problems, or hopefully this gets developed and comes out the way it's supposed to. So anyway, this is Starship Simulator. You can check out the demo on Steam if you want, or just follow the project along and see where it goes. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video. We will catch you on the next one. Take care.